Do you want to know why you should never order a buttload at the bar? The reason UPS trucks always have their doors open? And the truth behind airplane toilets? Well, stay tuned, because these are the wildest science facts imaginable, with each even crazier than the last. Clouds seem to float so effortlessly in the sky. But you should probably know that if the sky really did fall, those fluffy white blobs would be well worth running from. Forget bounding along the clouds like feather-light pillows, because scientists now estimate that the average cumulus cloud, the everyday variety, actually weighs a whopping 1.1 million pounds. According to Peggy Lamone, a scientist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, a cumulus cloud has a water density of 0.5 gram per cubic meter and an overall volume of 1 billion cubic meters. That's 500,000 kilograms of water, or about 1.1 million pounds. To really visualize that, just imagine 100 adult elephants floating above your head. But how do clouds stay afloat? Well, that's all down to the way the weight is spread out into millions of tiny droplets over the space of about a kilometer. No need to get too paranoid. It's 1929. Princeton University professor Ernest Glenn Weaver and his research assistant Charles William Bray are kicking about in the lab when they have a light bulb moment. Hey, do you reckon we could turn a cat into a telephone? Enter one sedated but very much alive feline. First, the men opened the cat's skull and attached one end of a telephone wire to its right auditory nerve, then attached the other end of the wire to a telephone transmitter. Ernie then took the receiver into a soundproof room 50 feet away and had Chuck speak into the cat's ears, and to their surprise, it worked. There's no record of the first words spoken through kitten transmission, but let's assume, in the immortal words of Adele, it was something like this. Unfortunately, Chuck and Ernie got a little too trigger-happy after their initial success and decided to kill the cat and try again. This led to another crucial discovery. Only a living cat can be a telephone. I guess mad scientists really do exist. Calling Soviet Dr. Vladimir Demikov a mad scientist would be underestimating his contributions to the world of medicine just a smidge. But his fixation with canine experiments definitely fits the bill. Demikov was actually a pioneer in transplantology, having successfully transplanted a number of vital organs between dogs, but he wanted to take things further. One day he thought to himself, I wonder if I could graft the head of one dog onto the body of another fully intact dog. The sky's the limit, buddy. Starting in 1954, Demikov and his associates set about performing this freaky surgery some 23 times, each time with varying degrees of success. The 24th time was not the most successful time, but it was the most publicized, and images of the attempt appeared in Life magazine under the headline, Russia's Two-Headed Dog. For this particular surgery, Demikov chose two subjects, one large stray German shepherd that he'd nicknamed Brodyaga, meaning tramp, and a smaller dog named Shavka. Brodyaga would be the host dog, and Shavka would provide the secondary head and neck. The operation took a mere 3.5 hours, and the two-headed dog could hear, see, smell, and swallow. Although Shavka's transplanted head could drink, she was not connected to Brodyaga's head, so anything she drank just flowed through an external tube and onto the floor. In the end, the two-headed dog lived just 4 days. Far less than Demikov's longest living two-headed dog, which survived 29 days. It's no surprise, though, that head transplants still aren't commonplace in modern medicine, as Demikov might have hoped. Ever noticed how UPS drivers always speed around in trucks without any front doors on? This unusual practice is perfectly legal in America, and it all comes down to saving precious time and money. You see, the average UPS employee makes about 130 stops a day. That's a lot of time spent opening and closing doors, especially when some stops are just minutes away from each other. In business terms, more time always equals more money, so it makes financial sense to the company to remove the doors altogether instead. UPS trucks are also not fitted with AC for the very same reason, because getting in and out of the truck multiple times would make for a very efficient flow of cold air. As a result, UPS drivers also rely on the breeze blowing through their doorless vehicles to get some much-needed respite from the scorching summer heat. When organ transplants became increasingly successful back in the 1980s, the demand for them skyrocketed, and a huge problem suddenly hit the medical community. The need for organs was much greater than the number of organs available, leaving them with a terrifying shortage. So in 1997, surgeons and engineers began experimenting with whether or not human body parts could be grown, not in a lab, but on animals. The experiment was a success, as proven by the Vacanti mouse, a rodent with a human ear growing on its back. Surgeons achieved this by creating a small scaffold which they inserted under the mouse's skin. Then they injected cartilage cells which grew around the scaffold, creating the shape of the ear. Amazingly, the cells thrived, resulting in a lab-grown human ear that helped prove extensive tissue regeneration in living subjects was possible. It's this essential scientific discovery that's allowed doctors to regrow cartilage-based features in humans, like this ear grown on a veteran soldier's forearm after he lost his defending his country. Once fully grown on a part of the body that receives good blood flow, the ear can be safely transplanted onto the side of the head without much risk. And to think this amazing breakthrough was thanks in part to a brave little mouse. Say hello to our brand new Scratch Effect calendar. It isn't your average calendar, this one's packed with hundreds of fun facts. Each day, scratch off to reveal a brand new amazing fact that'll blow your mind. From wild history tidbits to quirky trivia, you'll have something new to look forward to every single day. But wait, there's more. Each page is bursting with stunning hand-drawn illustrations of Bartholomew's adventures over the seasons. It's an immersive work of art, and it's the perfect gift for your friends and family that everyone can enjoy each and every day. So why settle for a boring 2026 calendar when you can have the Be Amazed Scratch Effect calendar? Ever heard someone say they drank a buttload of wine last night? If that was really true, they wouldn't have lived to tell the tale. You see, a butt is quite a stupendous amount in the alcohol industry. It's a pretty old term nowadays, but the measurement refers to a casket or barrel traditionally used to store whiskey or wine. 2 full barrels, also known as hogsheads, generally equal 1 butt. Yes, 2 heads make a full butt. It's really that stupid. The capacity of a hogshead depends on its contents, but in the US it's generally 63 gallons, which means a buttload would be around 126 gallons. If 2 glasses of wine are enough to have you seeing double, you should probably steer clear of ordering a buttload next time you hit the bar. On December 7, 1941, a dentist named Little S. Adams was vacationing at the famed Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, which is home to about 1 million bats. That same day, Adams heard on the radio that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. Furious, and apparently still enamored by his winged companions, Adams started plotting an unusual revenge plan: a bat bomb. On January 12, 1942, Adams sent his plan to the White House. What if we strapped tiny incendiary bombs to bats, which they could carry into every nook and cranny in the city? Surprisingly, the US government decided that the bat bomb seemed like a totally feasible idea, possibly because Adams happened to be friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, and agreed to put it into development. Thousands of bats were equipped with tiny bombs stuck in ice trays to cool them into hibernation for shipping, and then packed into a special canister which would supposedly release them mid-air. Unfortunately, initial tests didn't go quite as planned. On one occasion, some of the bats were accidentally released early, blowing up an entire hangar. After about 30 failed demonstrations and $2 million spent, the US abandoned the idea in favor of the atomic bomb. And Adams then tried to invent a fried chicken vending machine instead. So it all worked out for the best. Man, will these people just leave the animals alone? Most people know by now that airplanes don't just drop human excrement out of the sky at high altitudes, but the truth is far less exciting. In the 1980s, airplane toilets relied on the same blue deodorizing liquid as porta potties known as Anatech to push waste from the bowl into onboard storage tanks, but this had some drawbacks. Besides the increased fuel consumption involved in carrying the fluid, the systems were prone to leaking waste which would freeze into blue ice capable of plummeting through the air and causing some serious damage. Nowadays, aircrafts use a safer Kepner system involving a powerful vacuum which sucks everything down within seconds. Tanks holding up to 20 gallons of waste are then safely pumped out after landing, so no need to duck for cover. Here's a bar bet you'll never lose. A lemon will float in a glass of water, but a lime will always sink straight away. You might assume that this is because the rind of a lemon is thick and porous compared to the thinner coating of a lime, but peel both fruits and you'll find the exact same result. In fact, chop them up and try again and there will be no change. According to the USDA website, a lime is 88.26% water by weight and a lemon is 87.4%, which isn't a huge difference, while both lemons and limes generally weigh around 101 grams each. So if it's not to do with weight, what exactly is going on? It's all down to our friend density, because an object will float if it's less dense than the liquid it's placed in. While limes have a density of 1.12 grams per milliliter, lemons have a density of just 1.02 grams per milliliter, compared to the density of water, which is approximately 1 gram per milliliter. Now, I know I said objects with a density less than water are usually the floaters, but because the density of a lemon is almost the same as the water it's placed in, it will float just fine, while a lime is just a tad too dense and sinks instead. Comic Sans. Just the name is enough to strike fear into the heart of anyone who has ever received a poorly designed funeral invitation mindlessly scribbled out in the clown-like bouncy font everyone loves to hate. If this heinous lettering is enough to send shivers down your spine, then this information is sure to be a comfort. The guy who invented it hates it just as much as you do. That's right, Vincent Connare, who created the fun-loving font in 1994, has openly admitted his regret for ever unleashing it on the world. In fact, Connare has only ever used the font once in a strongly worded letter of complaint to the broadband company Sky, which earned him a disappointing $12 refund. That's all very well, Vincent, but no amount of regret is ever going to erase the permanent scourge you've placed on society. Okay, so copper might not seem as attractive as sleek stainless steel when it comes to interior decor, but choosing substance over style could actually save your life. Ancient civilizations have recognized the intrinsic value of copper for around 5,000 years, and it might be time for this underappreciated material to make a much-needed comeback. Why? It's a total virus destroyer. When bacteria like E. coli, superbugs, or MRSA and viruses land on most hard surfaces, they usually live for 4 to 5 days. But copper is a whole different kettle of fish. That's because it's a natural passive antimicrobial material which can self-sterilize its surface without any need for electricity or bleach. When nasty bacteria and viruses land on it, they're flooded with copper ions which penetrate the cells like bullets and destroy them right down to the reproductive blueprints or nucleic acids inside. Maybe it's time to start switching out your doorknobs, drinking from copper cups, and donning copper-plated armor whenever you leave the house. Okay, maybe that last part is a tad extreme. People, mostly women, have been willing to put up with just about anything to avoid unplanned pregnancies. And I do mean anything. It sucks to this day that the weight of contraception has always been on the female partner, but it definitely sucked even more back in ancient Egypt. In order to create a barrier between their cervixes and ambitious little swimmers, women were encouraged to shove a special paste made of crocodile poop and honey into their hoo-haws. Amazingly, historical records show that this method was actually fairly effective because the poop's acidic properties may have made it an effective spermicide. The success of this method is a double-edged sword though, mostly because it meant a woman's only choice for a good few centuries was to have a baby or stick poop where the sun don't shine. Now there's a predicament you'll probably never find yourself in today. Yep, the past sure has a strange relationship with pregnancy. Before the trusty pea stick was around to determine your fate for the next 18 years or so, there were innocent bunnies. If you've ever heard someone use the perplexing phrase, "the rabbit died," to announce their pregnancy in a movie or a TV show,
well, the rabbit died.
here's why. Its origins can be traced back to the 1920s and the discovery that a woman starts producing a hormone known as human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, shortly after a fertilized egg has implanted itself in the uterine wall. 7 years later, medical researchers found that female rabbits injected with urine containing HCG would, within a few days, also display distinct ovarian changes. Thus, the so-called rabbit test was born, along with the misconception that the rabbit's death was somehow an indicator of a positive result. The truth is that the rabbits always died. That's because the only way to detect such changes in the rabbit's ovaries was to open up the bunny and have a look around, which inevitably killed it in the process. Modern pregnancy tests are still based on measuring the amount of HCG present in urine, but thankfully, they do that directly now without the need for a sacrificial bunny. Back in 2002, a team of astronomers from Johns Hopkins University set out to understand the star formation process by running a series of tests which collected light samples from 200,000 studied galaxies. By using these spectral analysis readings, they determined that the majority of stars were formed some 5 billion years ago. But they also made another interesting discovery. The same data allowed them to see what color the universe appears from Earth. After doing some workings out using the different samples of light, they concluded that they averaged together to create a beigeish white color with the hex triplet value of FFF8E7. The astronomers cast a vote for the color's official name, but eventually disregarded every other suggestion and settled on Cosmic Latte instead, which sounds like something off the Starbucks secret menu. Apparently, the color is due to how light emitted from distant stars appears from down here on our planet. As they travel billions of light years to Earth, these light waves tend towards pure white due to the light coming from the stars when they were younger and bluer. So maybe the sky is beige after all. Some of the other names that were in the running for the official color of the universe were Cappuccino Cosmico, Unibeige, Big Bang Buff, and Cosmic Cream. Nice. Being an astronaut comes with its own set of unique challenges, but something you might not have thought about is how to scratch an annoying itch when you're covered head to toe in a bulky spacesuit. Surprisingly, astronauts do have a few options when it comes to nose scratching. In fact, most space helmets have a small patch of Velcro on the inside for this very purpose. Besides this, the helmets are also fitted with a foam block known as a Valsalva device, which astronauts use to block their noses with when they readjust pressure. This block can also come in handy as an improvised scratching post in times of need. In 2011, Endeavour shuttle astronaut Andrew Fustel found himself in a rather sticky situation when some of the chemical used to prevent fogging inside the helmet got in his eye. Thankfully, he was able to use the Valsalva device to relieve the irritation and continue his spacewalk. Next time you have an annoying itch, just think, it could be worse. Drifting 10,000 light years from Earth in a constellation far, far away is a massive cloud of alcohol. The cloud, which was discovered in 1995 near the constellation Aquila, is 1,000 times larger than the diameter of our solar system. What's more, it contains enough ethyl alcohol to fill 400 trillion pints of beer. Anyone got a rocket I can borrow? Sadly, the cloud is 58 quadrillion miles away, so an interstellar pub crawl is probably off the cards. What's more, it contains a cocktail of 32 compounds, and some, like carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, and ammonia, aren't so desirable. Another alcohol cloud named Sagittarius B2 also holds 10 billion liters of mostly methanol alcohol, which is used in antifreeze and windshield washer fluid. But how did this cosmic hooch get up there? Well, alcohol is an organic compound. As new stars heat up, Formed as clouds of gas and dust collapse, ethyl alcohol can attach to specks of floating dust. As this dust moves towards the new star, the alcohol heat separates and turns to gas. I wonder if space booze goes well with moon cheese. Now, while these space facts may be whimsical, but it's not all joy out there. Ever thought about the dark side of life among the stars? If you do happen to croak, what happens to you? You'll be surprised to know that NASA actually has no official protocol for this grim circumstance. Astronauts usually spend only 6 months at a time in space on board the International Space Station, and they must undergo rigorous vetting, including intense medical examinations, before they get there. In his book, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, astronaut Chris Hadfield revealed all about a chilling training exercise called a death sim. This is usually a roundtable discussion where one astronaut is announced as having died and the others must hypothesize about what to do about it. There are no body bags or special lockers on board, so the simplest solution is to just pop the ship's airlock and jettison the body out into the vacuum of space, Spock style. But a UN agreement says you can't litter in space, and that includes dumping bodies. It's equally impractical to keep a body aboard a spacecraft, and adding a mini mausoleum would likely cost millions. One of the most interesting solutions is the product of a collab between the green burial company Promessa and NASA dubbed the Body Bag. This basically involves an airtight sleeping bag that a human body is zipped into, then exposed to the freezing temperatures of outer space. The frozen body is then hauled back inside and vibrated intensely until it shatters into about 50 pounds of human dust that can be hung outside the aircraft until it returns to Earth. What a way to go! How many times have you parked your car in a parking lot and walked away only to realize you forgot to lock it? Instead of retracing your steps towards the car until it's in range, there's one simple way to reach your car from further away. Hold the metal key part of your key fob against your chin, then press the lock button. It might look slightly weird while doing it, but you'll be grateful when it saves you a few extra steps. The trick works by turning your head into an antenna, according to Silicon Valley radio engineer Tim Pozar. With all the fluids in your head and the electrical currents flowing in your brain, your noggin ends up being a pretty decent conductor. It won't work across great distances, but using your head can actually extend the key's wireless range by a few car lengths. Most modern smartphones are supposed to have a great battery life, but it seems to me like they're always dying when you need them the most. Thankfully, there's one super simple way you can make the most out of your remaining juice. If, like most people, you carry your smartphone around in your pocket, then part of the problem might be that your pocket is too warm. You see, cell phone batteries do actually last a bit longer if they're kept cool. The average 98.6 degree Fahrenheit body heat of a human being when transmitted through a cloth pocket to a cell phone inside is enough to speed up chemical processes inside the phone's battery. As a result, it runs down at a faster rate. The simplest way to keep your phone cooler is to carry it inside your bag or on a belt clip instead. And if you ever find yourself away from home without a charger, you can switch off your phone and pop it in the refrigerator to slow down the battery losing charge. I don't recommend using the freezer though. Personally, I can't stand to look at myself, and it's not because my beauty is so blinding. The real reason why we tend to shy away from our appearance in photographs is a little more complex than just a bad hair day. Our mirror image is essentially a flipped version of our true selves, which means we're far more used to seeing someone who doesn't really exist. When we anticipate seeing this mirror image in a photograph, we set ourselves up for instant disappointment, whereas friends and family will often see nothing wrong with what we consider a bad photo because that's the version of us they always see. If that wasn't trippy enough, differing photographic focal lengths can also alter someone's face shape entirely. So can we ever truly know what we look like? I hate to break it to you, but the jarring recordings you hear of yourself in videos are far more accurate than the speaking voice you're so used to. The reason we're so shocked when listening to ourselves back is because while others only hear the sound waves conducted by air, the voice you know is a combination of external sound alongside the internal acoustics of our bones. Your voice reverberating around your skull produces rich, low-frequency pitches which don't exist externally, meaning our voices are generally higher than we'd like to think. Ah, freshly cut grass. I love the smell. Or at least I did. To put it plainly, that delightful scent wafting through the summer breeze is actually just the grass screaming in agony. When grass is cut, a greater number of organic compounds known as green leaf volatiles are released to aid the plant in closing the wounds and producing new cells. This combination of 8 oxygenated hydrocarbons along with alcohols and aldehydes which make up the GLVs also happen to be pleasing to the human nose. So next time you stop to take a long sniff, just remember, it's the sweet smell of trauma. As it turns out, there's a scientific reason why snowy landscapes are associated with peace and quiet. As fluffy snow accumulates on the ground, it acts like a sound absorber because it's essentially a porous material like foam, and as snow doesn't hit the ground with nearly as much force as water, even the heaviest snowstorm can seem relatively silent. Snow also stacks up with a lot of air between flakes, which means sound waves have less surface area to bounce off than raindrops, for example, making most sounds seem muffled. Ever wondered what the deal is with those "I am not a robot" checkboxes? With modern developments in AI, it's hard to believe that a robot couldn't just declare itself as a human online. Fortunately though, the anti-bot CAPTCHA system has been specially programmed by Google to record a multitude of human actions like the number of accidental key presses, mouse clicks, taps, and scrolls made on the page. Similarly, while an AI bot would probably move quickly in a straight line to the box, human reaction tends to be delayed and imprecise. Experts say it's almost impossible for a bot to replicate a human, but if you practice hard enough, you can probably trip the CAPTCHA into thinking you're a robot. Routine blood tests aren't always pleasant, but it seems they could be worse if nurses didn't always choose the ring finger. Firstly, your thumbs and pinky fingers contain tendons which communicate with the entire hand and wrist, so getting an infection here could spread to the entire arm. Of the remaining fingers, your ring finger is used the least, meaning that the skin is more delicate and easier to puncture with less pain, and the wound will also heal much faster. If you feel like the years are getting shorter with age, it might not be all in your head. Using simple philosophy, designer Maximilian Kiner has created a graph which demonstrates how the longer you live, the relative significance of each year of your life decreases. For instance, a 2-year-old will experience a full half of their young life in a single year, while for an average 30-year-old each year is just 3.33% of their life, and in your 60s this could drop to just 1.67%. It all comes down to a loss of novelty. While children are constantly taking on new information, we settle into day-to-day life as adults and things become routine. With hundreds of types of shampoo on supermarket shelves, it might seem strange that the lather is always white. But it comes down to simple science, baby. Firstly, the dyes used in shampoo are already highly diluted and only become more so as they're mixed with air and water molecules to create bubbles, like a red balloon being inflated until its color fades. It also has to do with the scattering of light, as light rays striking the tiny bubbles get redirected in various directions due to vast irregularities in the foam's molecular makeup. These countless light-scattering surfaces make it almost impossible for the human eye to detect any remaining colors. If you find yourself in a survival situation and in need of rescuing or medical attention, you'll need to make an emergency call. But being out of service isn't always what it seems. In these situations, a no network available message only refers to your own specific carrier network, and your mobile phone is actually equipped to piggyback on any other network in range. This life-saving feature has been a staple since the global system for mobile communications was established in the early 1990s, and only when there is no coverage for any network in the area will you be truly stuck. Believe it or not, no matter how often you gaze up at the moon, you'll have only ever seen one side. This is because the moon rotates around the Earth at the exact same speed as it rotates around its own axis. which takes about 27 days, meaning that the same side is always facing us. If the moon didn't spin at all, then it would alternatively show its near and far sides during orbit. What's known as synchronous rotation or tidal locking prevents us from seeing the other hemispheres, and it's been this way for an estimated 4 billion years now. As the Earth's gravity gradually tugged at the moon, it deformed its shape slightly to face us and slowed its rotation, becoming tidally locked. If you've ever been lucky enough to witness an aircraft going supersonic, you'll know the only thing more impressive than the sound is the sight. That brilliant cloudburst seems to appear when the jet breaks the sound barrier, and many people have been led to believe that this is a sonic boom, but it's not. Or at least, not quite. These little conical clouds are called vapor cones, a physical effect that takes place as something approaches the speed of sound, but it's not the sonic boom itself. As the aircraft approaches the speed of sound, which is a breakneck 767 miles per hour, shock waves form around the aircraft. This causes a discontinuity in the local air pressure and temperature, forcing the air to lose its capacity to hold water, and condensation forms, creating the vapor cone. But just to make things more complicated, vapor cones appear most prominently in a state of transonic flight. This is where some of the air around the aircraft is flowing above the speed of sound and some of it below. So the aircraft isn't necessarily traveling at the speed of sound, but the air flowing over its wings is. On top of that, the climactic conditions have to be just right, where there's plenty of moist, warm air. This is why some sonic booms like this don't have that iconic vapor cone. Even without the vapor cone, though, it's still seriously impressive. The distinctly bumpy design of most popular soda bottles is probably not something you ever thought to question, but there's a legit reason why they aren't just flat-bottomed like water bottles. The standard 5-pointed bottom is not just a way to make them seem fancier, but a matter of stability. Soft drinks like Coke and Sprite are served chilled, so the plastic bottle needs to withstand the change in volume that happens when the liquid increases in temperature without toppling over. Soda is also aerated, and a flat bottom would bulge when the bottles are pressurized to fill the gas as the drinks are carbonated, so the 5 feet are far more robust. Thanks to the countless amounts of proof provided to us by the means of photography and physics, we all know that the Earth is round. But despite what you've been taught in school, it actually isn't a perfect sphere. And before the comment section of this video becomes a trollfest of flat earthers, no, it isn't a disk either. The Earth isn't perfectly solid, which means that as it spins through space, the centrifugal force drags the mass within it out at the equator, while the poles remain unaffected. This results in the Earth bulging slightly at the equator, making it look ever so slightly squashed. Emphasis on the slightly. The effect is so small that the Earth is only 0.3% wider at the equator than it is between the two poles. It may not sound like much, but that's still a massive 26-mile bulge. For perspective, that's more than 94 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of one another. Maybe from that height, the flat earthers might finally be able to get some perspective. Explosions are some of the coolest things in the world, so it stands to reason that walking away from them without looking makes someone super cool. This is a classic, cheesy way for a movie to let the audience know that the character is so badass, they ain't even interested in the erupting ball of flames behind them. Unfortunately for Wolverine, though, in real life, this slow walk away from danger would likely be the last time he got to use his legs. This is because explosions aren't just fiery, they also produce what's called blast pressure. This is the shock wave that occurs after a loud bang, and it's the force that throws objects around and shatters windows within the blast radius. This means that even if you aren't burnt by the flames, an explosion can still kill you through internal damage. You see, a blast can be strong enough to shake and smush together your internal organs, and trust me, your organs ain't up for that kind of exercise. An explosion causes overpressure. That's the pressure caused by a shockwave above normal atmospheric pressure. If this reaches just 3 pounds of pressure per square inch, it's enough to demolish a residential building and produce winds of over 100 miles per hour. If you're too close, this can cause internal hemorrhaging, bone fractures, and the awful sounding blast lung. This is why doctors recommend you seek immediate medical attention if you're near an explosion, regardless of whether you're burnt or feel hurt right away. Oh, and if you're close enough to an explosion to be flung back like this, well, your insides probably look like Nickelodeon slime. What would you do if you could fully harness 100% of your brain's power? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a commonly held belief that human beings only utilize 10% of their brain's potential, or 20% or 5%, depending on the version of the myth you've heard. The 2014 film Lucy was all about Scarlett Johansson slowly accessing 100% of her brain, which turns her into a goo computer? Okay. Well, with such outstanding supporting evidence, it probably won't surprise you to hear that this fact is complete bunk. While it's true that humans don't use 100% of their brains at any given time, this is because different areas of the brain do different things. For example, the cerebellum is in control of your balance and motor control. Broca's area is in charge of speech, while the medulla controls your blood pressure and breathing. The brain is a highly complex piece of equipment, and because different areas do different things, not all of them are useful all of the time. Saying a human being only uses 10% of their brain at a time is like saying a traffic light only uses a third of its lights at a time. And much like if a traffic light were using all its lights at once, using all your brain at once would likely mean something is very wrong. Because in reality, the closest humans come to using all of their brain at once is during a seizure, where an abnormal burst of electrical signals effectively overload the brain. I guess if Lucy were accurate, the movie would have been over not long after it began. If you live in a city, you might have been told to watch out when walking at the base of a skyscraper in case someone decided to whimsically flip a penny off the top. Though small, the speed of the penny hurtling towards the ground would turn it into a torpedo, with the force of gravity making it accelerate all the way down until it reaches speeds that could crack open your melon. Yikes. Well, it certainly made me think twice about city living. It turns out there's no truth to this rumor whatsoever. Even if you were to drop it off the Empire State Building, a penny is too small, flat, and cushioned by air to transform into a super aerodynamic torpedo. Regarding the ever-accelerating force of gravity that could theoretically happen if all the air was sucked out of New York City, air resistance slows the penny down, so even if a penny on the heavier side were to be flipped over the edge, the air resistance and gravity would eventually match at a point known as terminal velocity. This would give the coin a rough top falling speed of 12 miles per hour. Hardly enough to do any serious damage. And if it did land on you, it'd just feel like you'd been flicked in the forehead. Hard. In 1993, a man named Gary Kremen saw World Wide Web's potential as the perfect way to put romantic strangers in touch with each other, so he created a little domain called Match.com. Nowadays, it's one of the world's biggest online dating sites, with over 5 million users worldwide. But people didn't quite take to it immediately. The internet was still pretty fresh, and meeting strangers through it seemed like a daunting prospect. Undeterred by a lack of interest, Kremen devised a clever plan. He'd make everyone at the company create a profile on the site, which included his girlfriend at the time. You see where this is going, don't you? His idea worked too well because Kremen's girlfriend soon met someone new on the site and decided to leave him. It might seem like he had just taken a massive L, but he apparently saw it as a positive thing because it proved that Match.com could be a success. Keep telling yourself that, buddy. Generally speaking, you'd be hard-pressed to find a UPS truck making a left-hand turn into traffic at a busy intersection, and it's all about the cold hard cash. When UPS decided to focus on greener driving, they fitted trucks with special sensors and did some data mining to discover that too many drivers were idle while waiting to make a left turn. From 2004 onwards, management instructed drivers to turn right instead by reworking pre-planned routes to minimize the amount of necessary left turns. UPS saw an immediate positive response to this new clockwise system, which amounted to some 350,000 more packages delivered annually, around 10 million gallons less gas burned, and $35 million saved. And why not check out all our other amazing products and bundles at the lowest price they'll ever be? But hurry, because this discount is only for a very limited time. All items are designed with love by us, and every purchase you make directly funds what we do here on this channel. So hurry, don't miss out on this savings. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description to purchase this bundle of joy while stocks last. And on that note, time for me to hit the bar myself. Which of these crazy factoids blew your mind the most? Let me know down in those comments below and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.